Hey, Evans. BYU University is established by the Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, in other words. They have a very bizarre honor code that they expect their students to abide by. Now, a code of conduct is not unusual in colleges, particularly for their athletes. Um, Recently, Georgia star wide receiver, A.J. Green was suspended from several games because he had sold his jersey, which is a big no-no in the way that the whole thing played out. And so he was suspended from games. But other players have been suspended for getting DUIs and doing other things that they ought not have been doing, most of which were based on laws that were being broken. Some that had to do with just, you know, behavior that is not very becoming. Um, BYU took that to a whole new level. They have suspended Brandon Davies, not for a game, not for a half of a game or a few games. He's gone. He's off the team because he had sex with his girlfriend. Yep. Sex with his girlfriend. And this guy now loses, everything he was doing. He was a star on the team. He was a third highest scorer and top rebounder. After losing him, they lost to New Mexico recently, which should have been a win for them. And now they've dropped from what would have been a number one seed in the upcoming championship tournament to who knows where they'll end up by the time it actually comes around. This is going to hurt them tremendously. They will probably not get very far in the tournament, according to analysts. I couldn't tell you. I'm not a basketball fan, so this isn't about the basketball. I really couldn't care less. So should he have been kicked off the team because he had sex with his girlfriend? Now, I agree. He knew what this honor code was when he joined BYU. When he signed to go to school there, he accepted this honor code. But still, this honor code is ridiculous. Now let's do a lot of talk radio, and it's been talked about there because it's a pretty big story, being that BYU was so favored by many people. But this honor code, directly from BYU's website, by the way, says that you are to be honest, live a chaste and virtuous life, obey the law and all campus policies, use clean language, respect others. Okay, so far, nothing too out of the way. Use clean language, I get, although okay, I can forgive that one. But the next one is the one that baffles me. Abstain from alcoholic beverages, tobacco, tea, coffee, and substance abuse. Lumping tea and coffee in with substance abuse? Seriously? Participate regularly in church services. Now, it doesn't say you have to be a Mormon, doesn't say you have to attend their church, but you have to attend church. I don't know if that includes a mosque or a synagogue, but you have to attend church. It is a private university, so having a religious standard is their prerogative, I suppose. I don't necessarily have a problem with that one. Observe the dress and grooming standards. Part of that is you can't have stubble. You must be clean shaven. So if you're late and you don't have time to shave, you could be kicked off campus. The religious side of this has gotten a complete and total pass from what I've heard in the talk radio circuit. Everybody's talking about how they don't think that the punishment fits the crime. They're talking about all this stuff. The coach, Dave Rose, says a lot of people are trying to judge if this is right or wrong, but it's a commitment they make. It's not about right or wrong. It's about commitment. I disagree. Now, while I agree they made the commitment, so it's their own fault. It's their own stupid fault for agreeing to go to this dumb school that would have such a ridiculous requirement of you. I agree there. But this is about whether or not this standard is fair, and whether or not it is necessary. It is based on a absurd fundamentalist ideal from a religious concept that is just so outdated and retarded that it should not exist in the 20th century. Forget about the 21st. Tea and coffee. Tea and coffee. This is your sin. Notice it doesn't say Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has caffeine in it. You know, cola seems to be perfectly fine. Doesn't say chocolate. You know, chocolate's got caffeine. Tea and coffee. Really? Coca-Cola probably wasn't around whenever this rule was written, which is why it's probably not in there. Chocolate was, but maybe they didn't know caffeine was in chocolate. I don't know. I find this to be utterly ridiculous, and I disagree with Coach Rose. I think this is about whether or not this policy is right or wrong. I think it's a wrong policy for any school to have. So how bad will this affect BYU? Well, they were looking at a number 1 seed, and now they're not going to be a number 1 seed, which means they probably won't make it as far into the tournament. That means they won't get as much revenue out of the tournament because they won't have as many ticket sales. So it's going to affect them in their pocket. The attention, I don't think, is going to make them change their mind, but I think the loss of money might. It's funny how religious fundamentalism can alter when the cash stops coming in, when they realize how much they lost monetarily. I would love to see it. I don't know if it will or not, but I would love to see it, since this time, because this has happened many times before, this time it's getting so much press. I would love to see it that students considering going to BYU, top athletes who are considering signing for a scholarship to BYU, will say no thank you and go somewhere else that doesn't have such a ridiculous rule. Of course, that would require people to not take my word for it and think for themselves.